Welcome back to Radio Free Market. Our show continues now. So we have a few minutes to talk about different things. I have a couple other doodads that I can share with you that I thought you might find interesting. And as was mentioned, I own an investment firm, and so I'm rather in the deep end of the pool when it comes to gold, and I know gold and silver pretty good. But so we can talk about money and things of that nature, and we don't really even have to finish all of it. I had one other thing I wanted to bring. It looks like I left, and I'm sorry that I left it because, well, you'll have to listen to the show I'm taping tomorrow because I'm going to read it at the end of the show. Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, I have you read. I can remember past the 5 business.
There you go.
And I was in Waco the year, Texas the year before your oil embargo and got 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a young whippersnapper.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you very much.
We were talking a little earlier about how you go from Federal Reserve to, say, well, first of all, assuming that you're not a big friend of the Federal Reserve.
That would be correct.
I thought that was a safe assumption. How do you go from there to, say, for example, back to the gold standard, when gold is priced so high right now?
Right. Well, that's an excellent question, and I am actually working on an essay on that point right now. There's 2 points that I'd make that I don't think we're going to have time to develop it because it would consume, a lot of time. But happy to spend time and talk with you about it more later. But the first thing is that you have to, you can't just look at gold. I'll read this because this is actually on this exact point that I was going to add to this essay. Looking at gold or a gold standard without looking at the structure of the system itself is like looking at steel or brick without looking at the architecture. And so it isn't just gold that is the important part of the conversation that needs to be discussed. It is how we actually have our monetary system, our banking system. So you can't meaningfully, in my opinion, actually discuss gold or a gold standard without actually adding free banking. And why free banking? Because the market, I think, has to have the opportunity to discover the value of having 100% reserves. And one of the books that should be over there, that you better have, is Murray Rothbard's book,
Mystery Banking.
Well, Mystery Banking should be over there. Oh, the other one, no, you got that. What has government done to our money? You don't have it. Well, I'll have to get you that. So let's see if this thing writes upside down. I guess it does. Mystery Banking. Let's go. Okay. It's the first time I'm writing it. I'll send you that book. He makes the case for the free banking scenario in that book, also in Mystery of Banking, which is also very good on that. Probably the best book that has been written on banking ever. But you can bet that. Let me put it this way. First of all, I take the view that right now the monetary ignorance that is in society is so wide and so deep, and the entrenched interests are so completely in control. It is tantamount to the Catholic Church having its control on the on the populace in medieval times, where the concept of excommunication was such a terror to people because it meant death. Because anyone who was excommunicated from the church was, there was a mark basically put on that person where any other person that had anything to do with them was also excommunicated. So they put shunning to a major effective tool at that time. And I like to point out that as strong a grip as that had on the consciousness of everyone, within a relatively short period of time, it got tremendously loosened. Now, how long a period of time was that? You know, if you want to just take Martin Luther's nailing the edicts on the door of the church, you know, maybe a couple hundred years, maybe 100 years or so. So is everyone waking up to end the Fed, is that going to actually transform everybody's mind in 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, 50 years, or what? I don't know. I do think that there's an opportunity for us to make a dramatic shift very, very quickly in the course of the next several years because of the internet and because we can share so much information. You know, and in sharing information, you don't even have to share a whole book. You can share an article, a snippet, a couple of paragraphs that can transform people's lives. And you can put it on an email and share it with 100 people, 1,000 people, all at once. You can create a podcast and have 3 sentences transform 1,000 people's lives that you'll never know and never meet. So today I think we have the opportunity of seeing a huge change very quickly as a potentiality, for real. But the other question that really is important, and it's part of your question, I think, is what happens? What is the next money, and how do we make that transition to it? And actually, I can't really spend the time to go into it all with you right now, because my essay is called How Do You Prepare for the Next Money? And the reality is that we need to primarily do what I was talking about today. You've got to start talking about it. You've got to get it out there. You have to do something to get it into the lexicon of people. In my little book, I point out that there are 4 basic things that people need to know about money that most people know about. Fiat money, legal tender law, fractional reserve banking, and inflation. The teeth of those 4 are legal tender law. That's the teeth. So if you want to take the teeth out of the dog, it's in legal tender laws. So how do you get the teeth out of the dog is the question. How you get the teeth out of the dog is by using other money. That's called civil disobedience, by the way. You know? And so if you're a chiropractor and you take apple pies, or you're a gas station owner and you take rabbits, or you're a restaurateur and take, you know, silver, all 3 of which, by the way, are real-life examples that are happening in Michigan right now, you're actually diluting the effect of these legal tender laws. That's a very, very powerful thing to do. And it's getting other people to think. Because this is one of the basic points that I bring out in my essay. The seller always knows their price. The seller always knows their price. So, if I'm the seller, and you come to me, and you ask me, how much is this book? And I say it's, you know, $5, $10, whatever. I say, well, I don't have $5, $10. Then I, as the seller, can think, and I can say, okay, how many chickens do you have? In other words, the seller sets the price. The buyer determines whether the price is going to get paid. That's how the equation works. And so, because sellers always know the price, sellers will discover the next money that will work if one stops working. That's how it always has worked. I have an essay in my archives of back in the early part of our country's development, how stores, the common conversation would be, the seller would come and meet the buyer and say, in what money will you pay? And based on the answer to that question, the price would be set. You see? Now, is this worth 4 chickens, 3 chickens, 2 chickens? I don't know. Me as a seller, I'm going to guess. Maybe I'm going to get it wrong the first time. Maybe you as the buyer are going to overpay or underpay. But the market will figure it out if that becomes the medium of exchange. The interesting thing about gold and silver is its persistence over time. In Malaysia right now, there's a state in the north of Malaysia, and I can't remember the name of it offhand, Keratin or something like that. And they have just allowed the silver dirham and the gold dinar to be legal tender. And there's quite a movement that has been going on in Malaysia for the last 10 years. And I have a small book that was written in the mid-90s by a Spanish-born Muslim by the name of Vadillo on the return of the gold dinar and how it conforms with Islamic law. It's a very interesting book. The interesting point about the dirham is the silver dirham is a small coin, rather thin, about the size of one of our quarters, but actually thinner, and nicely embossed. There's a nice little feel to it, but light. And with that, you can buy a chicken. Well, guess what? 2,000 years ago, you could buy one chicken with that one silver dirham. With a gold dinar today, which is worth about 180, 200 bucks, you can buy 2 goats. 2,000 years ago, 2 goats. So what is going to happen is that people are going to discover monies that are more persistent. And actually the punchline, and I'll give you the punchline in my essay because it isn't coming out for a while because I have a little more research to do on it, is you don't want to measure your net worth in dollars anymore. You want to measure your net worth in how many ounces of silver and gold you get. And because that's really how we're going to have to measure our net worth. Because that's basically, in my opinion, what we're going to be forced to. But when is the question.